Good evening and welcome. Olivia Newton-John is one of the most popular female performers in the world. She started her career singing backing vocals and went on to become the star of Grease, the most successful musical movie ever. Everyone remembers her as Sandy, the perfect teenager. But life hasn't always been kind to Olivia. She struggled through professional setbacks and personal tragedies. Now she's back in the charts with her new album. Ladies and gentlemen, Olivia Newton-John, Is This Your Life? Welcome. Good to see you. Olivia, you became one of the most popular singers in the world. And we spoke to Cole Joy, the Australian rock singer and friend. He told us this.
Olivia's direction was right. She did what she did best. She looked good. She always looked good, always sung well. And we're proud of her. She's been a good citizen, a good world citizen. Good on you.
Thanks, Cole.
How do you rate yourself as a performer?
Oh, goodness. I haven't done it in an awfully long time. I mean, I haven't been on a concert tour for a long time. I actually enjoy it now. Years ago, I used to be a very nervous performer, but now I really enjoy it. I enjoy the performing part of it. To rate myself, I wouldn't know how to do that. I'd better leave that to someone else.
Are you your worst critic?
Yes, very much so. I'm very critical of myself. So I'm never really fully satisfied with what I've done.
So you always want to try and do better?
Yes.
Well, life hasn't always been a fairy tale for you. You were born 46 years ago, not in Australia, but here in Cambridge, daughter of a distinguished academic parents. You were 5 when your family emigrated to Australia. You were 10 when your parents split. We asked your sister Rona what impact this had on you. She told us this.
I think it was very, very hard for her, and, you know, to be separated from her father, and Mum was working, and she calls herself a latchkey kid at that time in her life. You know, she'd come home from school and open the door, and I think it was very difficult for her.
Do you remember that day when you heard that your parents were to separate?
Yes, I do. Yes, my father took me into his study and told me that they were going to separate, and sat me on his knee, actually, and I told him that I wanted to stay with him, and he said, no, you have to be with your mum. And I do remember that day. It has a very strong memory for me.
Who did you blame?
I don't think I blamed anybody. I was just sad. I think most kids are sad about it, and I think in some ways you always wonder if it was something to do with you. I mean, I don't remember having those feelings, but I think there were, I might have had a bit of that in me, as most kids do, especially when you're the only one at home, and maybe you caused it somehow, you know.
Do you think it had an effect on you, and a lasting effect on you? Affected your attitudes later in life?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure, yes. I think that I was very cautious of getting married, because I didn't want to, as nobody wants to make a mistake, but I think that I probably took longer to make that plunge because I wanted it to be the right choice. And I think that was subliminal. I don't think I was aware of it until later on. Yeah. But in retrospect, yes, I did.
Well, you showed an early interest in show business, but your mother, whose own father had been a Nobel Prize winner, was against it. We spoke to Brian Goldsmith, your brother-in-law. He told us this.
First got the idea that Olivia wanted to be a singer when her mum used to ring me on a continual basis. Olivia's gone off singing again, will you talk to her? You can be tough. I was like, I can't be tough. But anyway, obligation said that as big, bold brother-in-law, I had to talk to her, and I talked to her. Eventually, I went back to Arena, her mother, and said, Arena, how about I take her to the best teacher in Melbourne and assess whether or not she can sing? Let's find out.
What did the teacher say?
Well, I remember that also because I went to the singing teacher and had one lesson and told my mum that I didn't want to go again because he wanted to teach me how to sing, and I wanted to sing the way that I wanted to sing. And the singing teacher told me that I naturally sang with my tongue flat, which is what you're supposed to do, which I didn't know, but apparently I did it. And yeah, and I also told my mum that he sang out of tune, and I didn't want to take lessons from someone that sang out of tune.
You should have given the teacher lessons.
Yes, so I guess I had pretty strong ideas about how I wanted to sing even then.
And how did your mother take the idea of you wanting to be a singer? I mean, you did fall out a bit over this.
Well, I think she was just concerned about education because, you know, my parents were both academic and all came from academic backgrounds, and she wanted me to have something to fall back on. And was very concerned that if I went into this career, what if I couldn't get a job and then I'd have nothing? So she really wanted me to finish school.
Get an education.
Get an education. And, you know, I respect that because I say the same about my daughter and I'm probably going to have exactly the same problem. But that's what she wanted for me.
And was there a bit of a fight about this?
Yes, kind of.
A few tears?
Yeah. What happened was that the Australian Christmas holidays are the summer vacation, and that's like a long break. And I was offered a children's show over that time period to replace someone. And then you go back to school in like beginning of February. Well, of course, I got a taste of it by then, and I didn't really want to go back.
Well, we're going to come on to the television in a minute. But whatever your mother's wishes, even at the age of 13, you were singing at your brother-in-law's coffee bar. And at 15, you joined a trad jazz band. Now, we spoke to your first singing partner, Hans. He told us this.
Get you a copper kettle, get you a copper coil, covered with new-made corn mash, and nevermore you will toil. Hello, Olivia. Do you remember this song? Remember the copper kettle? Sometime in 1962, when you came into the shop, school jacket on, 15 years old or thereabouts, and that was one of the songs you sang with me. Your voice sounding like a little silver pedal, and I think you became an instant success there.
Oh, that's sweet.
Now, he says you were an instant success. Did you begin to feel that things were going to go your way?
Well, I think maybe in the back of my mind I was hoping that something would happen, but I had no idea how it was going to go.
Well, you won a talent contest, you left school to present a children's television program, much against your mother's wishes, and you fell in love. We spoke to your first boyfriend, Ian Turpie. Yes, we did. He told us this.
Oh, God.
I remember Ross Porter, a mutual friend, saying to me, "You've got to come and see this spunk at Brummell's restaurant." So I did. And quite astounding to see a beautiful voice. And I remember one of those great songs that you and Hans, I think it was Hans, sang. Cats on the rooftop, cats on the tiles, cats with the crabs and cats with the piles. Cats with their bustles wreathed in smiles as they revelled in the throes of fornication. Charming stuff from a 15-year-old girl who was quite shocked.
Now, Olivia, this is not the squeaky clean image
No, it's not, is
that
it?
we would have expected of you at 15.
I think he taught me that song. I think that's the truth. No, Ian was a singer and still is an entertainer in Australia, and he came in and heard me sing, and that's how I got onto the talent show.
And you remember these words?
I do. I don't think I even understand what it was about. Hush my mouth. But I think I think I learned from him. I'm going to call him up after this.
I hope your mother didn't turn up when you were singing.
No, I don't think so.
Otherwise, you would never have been allowed to go back to the coffee bar.
It's true.
Well, it wasn't only your brother-in-law who was worried about Ian Turpie, so was your mother. We spoke to Gillian McGrath, your childhood friend.
Great.
She told us this.
Mrs. Newton-John is an extraordinary woman, and I think that she saw in Ian this absolutely go-get-it, adventurous young lad who was out there to prove himself and had fallen madly in love and was totally besotted by this young, gorgeous girl. And she couldn't probably cope with the threat of this man going to whisk her little daughter away. And I think that caused some conflict, and he probably did a few things, no doubt, that she didn't approve of either.
To get you away from Ian, one of the reasons anyway, was why your mother took you to Britain. But you were desperate to get back to him. You kept on booking airline tickets. Your mother kept on stopping you from going. So you even tried to make yourself a ward of court.
I did. How did you find all this out? I did.
Tell us about that.
Well, I wanted to go back, and Mum didn't want me to go back, and I was miserable in England at that time. So I went to see a lawyer. I don't know how I got the courage to do all this stuff, but somehow I did. I went to see a lawyer, but I found out that she still had control over me at that point.
And you couldn't go. Is it true that you would book some tickets to go back?
Yes.
And your mother would cancel the tickets?
Yes, there was a travel agent around the corner. And it was pretty dumb of me. I mean, you know, she probably figured, ooh, she figured it out. So I would go in there and book my ticket, and she'd go in there in the afternoon and go, has she booked it again? And cancel it.
Well, eventually you did return to Australia and you got on with your career, including regular appearances on Bandstand. What do you think, looking back at that?
Oh, it brings back a lot of memories. It's wonderful, actually. Could you get that skirt any shorter, do you think?
Any shorter and we couldn't show it.
I know.
But you are now a television star in Australia, and you must have thought by then that this was your future.
Yes, I did.
You knew then that something was going to happen.
Yes.
Well, things weren't so glamorous back in Britain. One of your early appearances was at the Raymond Review Bar in Soho, a great cultural centre of this city, as we know. And we spoke to your singing partner at that time, Pat Farrer. She told us this.
We had these cute little dresses, and we used to wear our clothes sort of up to here and just show a little bit of knee, and it was all sort of lace, very cutesy poo, and we had these cute sort of hairstyles that went flick up like that. And we got to Raymond's, and we were really excited about it, and we're on the side of the theatre and we're waiting to go on, and we look on into the wings, and the act preceding us was a woman stripping in a fish tank. I mean, she's naked in this fish tank. We had landed ourselves in a strip bar. we went out on stage, and it was horrific. It was all these men sitting there, all these sleazy men sitting there in this smoke-filled room, just staring at us. And I don't know, I think the owner thought maybe it would turn them all on or something, but they were so bored with us, because here we are doing our little sweet songs and doing our dance steps. Needless to say, we weren't asked back the next night.
You remember that night?
I really do. I really do. I remember going in there and seeing this girl in the fish tank and going, I wonder what this is all about. We didn't know it was I mean, we were so naive. I don't know how we survived, actually. And afterwards, Mr. Raymond came in and paid us off and said, it was very nice, but thank you very much.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Thanks, but no thanks. So, yeah, I remember that very well.
Do you remember what you were singing that night, the kind of music you were
playing?
we
would do things like, you know, the leaves of brown came tumbling down, remember, you know, September in the rain, and can't buy me love, you know, all this stuff.
Just what you would expect in a strip joint.
In a strip joint, yeah, with the little dance steps and the cute little dresses and, oh, gosh.
Well, at the age of 19, you met Bruce Welch of The Shadows. Now, this was to change your life, and we spoke to Gillian McGrath, your flatmate in London. She told us this.
I think the time of change that came for Olivia when she met Bruce, it was really from the sublime to the ridiculous, because we had lived like church mice virtually in the flat in Kensington. And then her romance started with Bruce, and he was, of course, already extremely successful and extremely wealthy and had a magnificent home, which Olivia then began to share with and moved into. And suddenly her life went from one extreme to the other.
But there was a problem. Bruce was married and had a baby. So what was it like being the other woman at that age of 19?
Not pleasant. It was not a pleasant position to be in.
Well, eventually it led to divorce, and you were named as the other woman. Did you want it to come to that? Was that what you wanted to happen?
Gosh, it's hard to think about these things now. Well, I thought at that point that we were going to get married at some time. So I guess I knew that was the inevitable, but he had been, I believe he was separated at one time before also. That doesn't make it any better, but that was just the circumstance.
Did it bring back memories too of your parents' divorce again, when divorce came back into your life again?
I'm sure it did, yes.
Well, you then became engaged to Bruce, and you were a couple for 6 years, but you never got married. Why not?
I guess it wasn't right. For various reasons, it just wasn't the right, and I wanted to be really sure that it was right.
You particularly felt it wasn't right.
Yes, I guess so.
And you were young at that time as well.
I was young.
Olivia, we've got to take a break there. But we'll be back in a moment.